While Americans are paying more for Japanese cars, is Japan preparing a financial blow that could shake the U.S. economy? U.S.-Japan auto trade war. The U.S. has continuously raised tariffs on automobile parts imported from Japan, particularly in the electric vehicle industry. A 25% tariff on auto parts has driven up the prices of Toyota, Honda, and Nissan cars in the U.S., causing these models to lose their major competitive edge advantage in the market. According to the latest report from the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association, Japanese car sales in the U.S. have dropped by about 7% in the first quarter of 2025. Meanwhile, U.S. automakers such as Ford and General Motors are attracting more customers due to government protection policies. This price increase not only reduces consumers' purchasing power but also harms Japanese automakers as profits sharply decline and production costs rise. Japan responds beyond words. However, Japan is not just responding with tough rhetoric. In fact, it has started selling off a large portion of the U.S. Treasury bonds it holds. Japan is currently the second largest creditor to the U.S., with over $1.1 trillion in bonds. In February 2025, Japan sold $30 billion worth of U.S. bonds, and this decision weakened the U.S. dollar and increased interest rates in the U.S., creating significant financial pressure. This is a high-risk financial strategy, as Japan is using its financial influence to directly affect the U.S. economy. Additionally, Japan is shifting its car production lines out of the U.S., with a significant portion of manufacturing moving to Mexico and Southeast Asia. This helps Japan minimize the impact of tariffs while still being able to supply products to the U.S. market without facing high tax rates. Japanese automakers like Toyota and Honda are heavily investing in manufacturing plants in Mexico and Southeast Asia, where labor costs are lower and unaffected by the protectionist tax policies from the U.S. This not only affects the U.S., but also makes international investors more cautious about purchasing U.S. bonds, especially as Japan is reducing its investment in this market. Future strategies. If the U.S. continues to make tougher decisions, Japan may escalate its retaliation measures. One possibility is to limit the export of core technologies, particularly solid-state batteries, which are leading the electric vehicle industry. Japan, with automakers like Toyota and Honda, is at the forefront of this technology. If the U.S. imposes tariffs on Japanese electric vehicle technologies, Japan might halt the export of solid-state batteries, which would significantly hinder the development of electric vehicles in the U.S., especially at a time when the U.S. is trying to boost electric vehicle production. Additionally, Japan could increase retaliatory tariffs on imported U.S. goods, directly impacting consumer products, machinery, electronic components, and even food. Cooperation with the EU and market diversification. While continuing to strengthen its cooperation with the U.S., Japan is actively expanding its trade relations with the European Union, EU. This will help Japan reduce its dependence on the U.S. market while creating additional opportunities for its automotive industry to grow in other markets. The EU has signed trade agreements with Japan, helping to expand the market and mitigate the risks from the possibility of further U.S. tariff hikes. At the same time, Japan is increasing electric vehicle production in these markets to maintain its competitive edge. The EU is not only an important market for Japanese cars, but also a strategic partner in providing new electric vehicle technologies, ensuring that Japan is not left behind in the global trend. Will Japan be able to force the U.S. to change its tax policies, or will the U.S. continue to take a hard stance, causing widespread financial impacts? Stay with us to find out more in the next video. The European Union has taken strong action with a counterattack decision worth up to $27 billion USD targeting U.S. goods. Is this a strategic move to help the EU maintain its economic strength, or a dangerous blow to the global economy? Trump's tariff move. In 2018, President Trump launched a strong tariff campaign, imposing a 25% tariff on steel and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports into the U.S. The main goal was to reduce the trade deficit and protect domestic industries. However, this move not only affected countries like China and Canada, but also strained the economic relationship between the U.S. and the European Union. The EU, with its strength in steel and metal exports, began to feel significant pressure from these decisions. Trump argued that this was a strategy to protect America first, but experts believe it was an interference with the principles of free trade. And when major trading partners are affected, A response was inevitable. The EU administration started calculating and preparing for the next steps. EU's $27 billion retaliation, with the US imposing tariffs on products like steel, aluminum, and agricultural goods, the EU could not stand by. Recently, the European Union announced a $27 billion retaliation package. These are not random figures, but the result of thorough research and planning by the European Commission. In this retaliation package, the EU targets iconic American products like motorcycles, wine, agricultural goods, and even technology products. These high-value items have a significant impact on U.S. businesses. This strategy is not only economic, but also a strong political message. We are not vulnerable. This means that if the U.S. does not change its policies, the EU will continue to raise tariffs on more American products. Once these measures are implemented, both economies will face unpredictable consequences. From rising prices to disruptions in global supply chains. Washington's reaction. So how will the U.S. respond to this move by the EU? The Washington administration quickly stated that the EU's tariff package would harm both sides. Some U.S. officials believe this decision could accelerate inflation and harm domestic consumers and businesses. A common viewpoint from the U.S. side is that if the EU carries out this plan, the U.S. market will be severely impacted, particularly in the agricultural and manufacturing sectors. However, these assessments were not enough to diminish the EU's resolve, as they stated, "We will not back down." The European Union emphasized that this step is necessary to promote economic independence and protect long-term interests. European leaders believe that despite facing challenges, the firm implementation of this plan will strengthen the EU's global position, EU unity, and internal concerns. Despite concerns from member countries such as Germany and France about the impact of the trade war on their economies, the European Union has demonstrated unity in responding to the U.S. decision. Germany, one of the largest exporters to the U.S., particularly in the automotive sector, fears it will be directly affected if U.S. tariffs continue to be imposed. However, the EU cannot allow these concerns to weaken the unity of the bloc. EU leaders have emphasized that to have strength in negotiations, they must remain united and not make concessions. All member countries understand that if the EU does not stand together, each nation will become divided and weaker. Therefore, this unity is a crucial factor in the strategy to counter the U.S. Certainly, the EU's decision has marked an important milestone in global trade relations. Is this a bold move by the EU to safeguard its interests? Or will it turn into a painful blow